Is our sound man? I see the thumbs up. That means it's ready to go. So anyway, welcome. This is our wonderful series where we meet and greet all these wonderful new thought beings that have made tonight possible. That's why we're here, as most of them, especially with Emma Curtis Hopkins. I just have a few announcements. Tonight we know where we're at. Tomorrow night is the abundance that is going very, very well. A couple testimonies will be said tomorrow, I heard. But that was just something to tease you. So we have that tomorrow night. And then Friday, if you have not seen the movie Heal, you must see it. I mean, I hardly ever put a demand on this group here. But please, please see it. It is so powerful. And I know you'd be here like 3 nights in a row and everything, but it's okay. You can sleep over on this side. But it is an absolutely wonderful movie. And then this Sunday is our regular celebration service, but we also have our annual meeting afterwards, and that lets us know where we've been, where we're going, and what we're up to. We haven't been talking much about this, but there's a couple flying solo people in the room. If there's any way that you can participate in this is life-changing. It's a 6-week with a presentation. I say presentation because the word performance makes people kind of nervous. But as I was just telling Charles, who's taking this, is that, and Ron, who already has, and Sue has taken this too, it is just life-changing. And the reason it is because you get the opportunity for 6 weeks to go in week after week after week and just discover more and more about you. And then I said to Charles tonight, the gift is this: your gift of doing flying solo to yourself is powerful, and then the gift that you give everyone that comes to see this presentation is the double gift. So I think that is all I have to say about that, and we won't even mention tomatoes on a windowsill, will we? But tickets are going very well, and we're just looking so much forward. So I will treat us in and then give it all to you, Miss Rita. No, Rita will not be trans-channeling Emma Curtis this evening. Maybe. But I will be. No. So let's just take a moment to just center in right here and right now into this space that has an atmosphere of joy, of love, of power, for this wonderful evening that is about to transpire from this moment to the next moment to the next moment. And I know that the gift of Emma Curtis Hopkins just reveals itself easily and effortlessly through this wonderful Reverend Rita. And I know that everything that is needed is already met in the mind of good. And I know that this time together is divine appointment. There are no accidents. We have come together to hear what we need to hear, to say what we need to say, to feel what we need to feel. So I just bless this evening knowing that it transpires perfectly, because that is where it is always coming from, is perfection. So I get out of the way and let the evening unfold as together we affirm as one. And so it is. There you go, Rita.
I'm very excited about Emma Curtis Hopkins because she's kind of a mentor to me, and I don't claim to know everything that she taught because it's very deep and it takes a lot to practice her, as you'll see as we go along. The things that she demands of her students and of people that are calling themselves healers is very deep and very profound. And if we look at the years of her life, there was a lot happening in the world during that time, a lot of change in our country, and a lot of big change in our country, and wars and independence and all kinds of stuff. And at that time, there was a great awakening happening in the mind of man and woman. And Emma said, "You are the patron saint by nature of literature, art, and education. All that you favor prospers if you have learned to spend all vacant moments silently whispering, 'I am good.'" That was her whole mission, really, if I had to put it in a nutshell, is that life is good and we are good. And so let's learn a little bit about her tonight. I got a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna. If I hit it all, I won't hit it all. I'll send you my slides. Okay, so here I was talking about the 1800s, and this is when transcendentalism started in this country. And I know we're all familiar with this guy over here, probably Ralph Waldo Emerson, right? Who was considered the father of New Thought, and also was in the beginning of the transcendental movement in our country. And he said, we will walk on our own feet, we will work with our own hands, we will speak with our own minds. A nation of men will for the first time exist because each believes himself inspired by the divine soul, which also inspires all men. And of course, we can add women to that. So that was basically the whole transcendentalist movement, and the whole thing that was happening was people were breaking away from the more, what do I want to call them? Patriarchal religions and restricted and all dogmatic stuff, and saying, no, there's something happening within each of us. We each have our connection to the divine. And these people were popping up all over the place, giving that same message. And that is the roots of our teaching of the science of mind and spirit, was the transcendental movement and these people of the 1800s and early 1900s. And of course, if we really look at it, it went back further than that, because I mean, it got lost, but it started all, and Emma's all into that too, with Jesus and that teaching. And even before that, with Plato and everything was saying the use of our mind is the power that we have. So Emma said, I love this quote, "You have no idea how much of the inefficiency of mankind comes from thinking about the wrongdoings of others and of ourselves. There is nothing more miserable than to feel that by some mistake in life you have not amounted to what you might have, and that your misfortunes all hinge on that mistake." Like I said before, her whole mission was to awaken in people their divine magnificence, and that they were really good, and that good was really all there is. And I know some of us have a problem with that idea that good is all there is, and I know that by the time we leave tonight, we'll have a bit deeper meaning of what that really means. Good is all there is. So, and feel free to ask me questions. I don't know if I'll be able to answer them, but if I can, I can always look them up, okay? So you could stop me anytime, and if I'm going too fast, tell me to. So, okay, so these are some of the facts of her life. I didn't know her name was Josephine. That's my middle name. Okay. I don't know how she got to be called Emma, but apparently she took her middle name. Okay, so Josephine Emma Curtis was born into the atmosphere of the change I was talking about in Killingly, Connecticut on September 2nd of 1853. I was born in 1953. Okay. As we go along, I know Patrick said I won't be channeling her, but maybe I will. As I go along, you're going to see these little books on the sides. These are some of the books that she wrote. And one of the things to know about her writing, if you choose to embark on it, is that it's written in that time period, and it's very archaic. And the meanings of some of the words she uses aren't necessarily the meanings of the words that we think of them, like the word evil. We think like evildoers or something. And in our teaching, evil means wrong thinking less of yourself, basically. Having an evil thought would be having a thought that you are poor, for instance, when you inherit the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, because of who and what you are. So when they use that word, that's what they're talking about. Anyway, she was a very smart lady, young girl. She attended Woodstock Academy and entering school shortly before her 15th birthday, and she graduated, joined the faculty as an instructor. Yeah, and we find this out and she came from very, very, very smart parents and very well-educated parents. And it says that she was learning how to speak Greek when she was like a child, and she was studying the ancient texts, and she was studying them in their native language. I know, right? So she's one of these people, highly, highly intelligent. And then in 1974, apparently she got married. Now, this is really interesting because there's not a lot known about her personal life. And I would really known about it, like where you could just really dig into it, like some of the other people where you know everything. Like maybe it's because they didn't have the National Enquirer and People magazine and stuff like that. But one thing it said about her is that one of it was because she was so devoted to what she was doing that perhaps she didn't really have a personal life very much. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, if you think about like great mystics and teachers, we don't really hear that much about their personal life. Like we don't know, like Jesus, what was his personal life? I mean, unless it was buried and we don't know that he was really married and had children. I mean, they say that, but it's not, we just don't hear a lot about it. So anyway, she did get married, and he was an English professor apparently, but they got divorced like shortly after. And they had one child, and his son name was John, and he died in 1905. But one of the things that was interesting, this was her first teacher, Mary Baker Eddy. She got divorced, and they say that she left her family. She basically left her family to go study with Mary Baker Eddy. As soon as she got affiliated with her and made contact with her, she kind of just took off. And so I could see, like, she's probably one of those, well, for her time, she was a really radical, independent woman. I mean, at that time, when you see the things she did with her life, you'll see. Anyway, so Mary Baker Eddy, she was another one, a very independent, strong woman, and we're going to study her someday. We don't, our teaching does come from Christian Science, but we don't practice as Christian Scientists do, and we don't follow Mary Baker Eddy's teachings because, in Mary Baker Eddy, let's say, because she believed in being the absolute truth, and there was no other truth. So in the early 1880s, it says Emma had a breathing ailment and came to Christian Science practitioner, and she had a healing experience. As usually happens, what's really interesting is all these people, they start as sick, invalids or whatever, and they end up cured, and then they go on to become healers themselves. Anyway, and Mary Baker Eddy was healed by Phineas Quimby. So there you go. So so she left immediately after family, went off to study with Mary Baker Eddy in Boston. And she rose very quickly to be one of Mary Baker Eddy's favorite people, and was given, the editorship of the Christian Science Journal. And I don't know what else they did together, but they apparently were very, very close. And she gave her a lot of responsibility until one day, without cause, she released her. And apparently, when we read about it, it was because Emma did not believe in absolute truth like one person had it. She believed that truth was universal. So she was editor of this Christian Science journal, and she was putting stuff in from Eastern thought and all these different, Hinduism and all this stuff. She started just putting that stuff in. And of course, Mary Baker Eddy, I don't want to put her down because Mary Baker Eddy also, like I said, was a very strong woman at a time that did a lot of good in the world. But she didn't like that. She felt like Christian Science was it. They read the one book, and if you go to a Christian Science church today, that's what they do. Is anybody here a Christian Scientist? No? They read one book, and that's it, and it's Mary Baker Eddy's word. So, but Emma was like a little bit too independent for that. So she left Mary Baker Eddy, and she went right to work. And she ended up establishing her own school. It was the Emma Curtis Hopkins College of Christian Science. She called it Christian Science, which is interesting. She dropped the name eventually because she believed in the teaching. She believed in healing, and she believed in practicing the divine presence and all the things that the Christian Scientists did. So she and plus it was based in the teachings of Jesus, and it was science. Those were the two things. So why wouldn't she call it Christian Science? And Mary Baker Eddy didn't like that at all, apparently, but I don't think she could do anything about it. Apparently, maybe they didn't have copyrights or trademarks in those days, or at least Mary Baker Eddy didn't have one. Anyway, so she did call it the College of Christian Science, and she started to teach. She graduated her first class in 1886, so I guess it was pretty quick. And Emma established many study groups in the East, the West. She was like just a teacher. That's what she did. She taught this principle, and she healed people. And it's said that many people came to her. Yes?
Is that school still open in Chicago?
No. No. In fact, she closed everything down after she felt like she was done. All those schools. Yeah, that's what it said. Her sister carried on her work for a while in different ways, but not that way. Anyway, so there was something else I was going to say back there. Anyway, she had all these. So These are just some of the things about her. There were 17 branches of the Hopkins Metaphysical Association from Maine to California. She was voted the honorary president of the International New Thought Alliance, which is an organization that's still active today. In fact, in some circles, she is called we call Phineas Quimby the father of New Thought, but she's considered the mother of New Thought. So, but we don't hear that very often. She taught over 50,000 individuals, and at that time she ordained women as ministers. I know, right? And it said another 30 years would pass before women gained the right to vote, and she was ordaining them as ministers. I know, right? There were a lot of powerful women at that time. So this is interesting too, and I love this. She must have been a great teacher. She insisted that her students knew everything already. So it wasn't like she was teaching them something. She was just awakening within them what they already knew. And she really encouraged her students. She wasn't like, you know how sometimes you have a teacher, I've had them during my day, they want you to be dependent on them, and they don't necessarily want you to learn and go out and do your own thing. She was just the opposite. And another thing I learned about her that always helps me when I have to get up to give a talk, she would never let somebody graduate unless they could stand up for 15 minutes and talk without notes. Otherwise, she said, you don't know this principle if you can't stand up and you're not in tune. Mostly you're not in tuned with the spirit within, because it's not you doing the talking. It's the spirit within that's doing the talking. So she encouraged students to find their own words and form their own practice, or schools or churches, and ordain their own ministers in whatever way they were called by infinite spirit. So going back to that idea that during that time period, it was all about the individual soul, the individual mind, the individual heart. And I'm sure she probably wasn't an easy teacher. She probably was in fact, they said she was very strict. You always have pictures of her with this little pillbox hat on her head and stuff. But I know she does, right? I found all these different pictures of her, but I don't know, somebody that loved as much as she did. She probably was just, what's the word I want to use? She wanted, do you ever have those people, they just want you to really get it. They want you to really speak up and be who you are and be your true self. And sometimes they can be hard on you to make you do that. I get the impression that she might have been one of those people. And she says she felt equal with her students because all were expressions of God, and that the teaching itself was more important than the teacher, which I love. And then, like I said before, once the movement was well launched and schools had been formed and churches, she closed up shop, dissolved her seminary, sold her belongings, and began an itinerant life. So she started moving from hotel to hotel to, she just traveled around and was like a gypsy in a way. So, and she did speak. She did speak and teach still, but she didn't stay in one place. A channel? I don't think she called herself a channel. But I mean, I guess we all channel in a way because we're all channeling the divine influx, and she was very open to that. So she insisted upon discipline. So to train your mind to think a certain way at all times, which is what we teach in this teaching, is we teach that we need to train our minds to think in a certain way. Otherwise, we're going to wreak havoc in our lives. And sometimes it's hard to do that. So it takes a lot of discipline. And she did another thing, which we always talk about, is she challenged students to prove out the truth principle in their lives. So like, what's the good if you know something, if you can't prove it in your life? And I think that's what we do in this teaching. That's one of the things. It's a practical science. I think I said this, that she taught over 50,000. I must have written it twice. And she taught okay, I don't know where. I obviously did a cut and paste. So she became known as the teacher of teachers. And I got this question wrong on my test. I did, because I didn't, for some reason, this was left out of my education until later. But the reason she was called the teacher of teachers is because she taught so many people that went out to teach and started ministries of their own. Two famous ones that we know are, the Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, right, of Unity Church. And then also Nona Brooks and Melinda Kramer, who were the founders of Divine Science. And Emily Caddy, who was also part of Unity, and also a writer and homeopathic physician. But they all studied under Emma Curtis Hopkins, and they were also all healed by her. People would come to her, and they would be healed by her. Not always immediately, it's said, but eventually. And then they studied with her and became healers themselves, which all these people did. So Myrtle Fillmore said that, I know of no other writings which mean so much to me as hers do. And definitely influenced the Unity movement, both in healings and prosperity, which is their big thing, which is the big thing of the New Thought movement, is to demonstrate, right? Demonstrate prosperity, demonstrate health. And that Unity movement, it's really huge. I mean, it's huger than Science of Mind and Spirit. If you know, and anybody here part of Unity? Or were? You were? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Who said yes? You? Yeah. Robert Schuller. I think so. Well, no, I don't think so. There's something else that sounds like Unity, but it's not. I'm not sure. Yeah, I heard something interesting when I was listening to the conference. I need to look more into it, that we were trying to partner more with Unity. I don't know what that meant. We'll see. But we're very similar to Unity. There's just, they're more reliant on the Bible than we are, I think. That's the biggest difference I see. But I mean, we believe the same things. So Ernest Holmes was her last student, apparently. And I heard a funny little story, because Ernest was probably this sweet little man, right? And he brought her like a bouquet of roses when he first came to see her. And she was in a hotel room somewhere in New York or somewhere. I don't know if it was in California or New York. And he gave her the flowers, and she just like kind of looked at him and said, I'm going to a funeral this afternoon. These will do very well. And she... That was his first, I know. Like, she was very stern and very practical. So if you come to me to study, you're going to study my 12 lessons, and we're going to learn my 12 lessons. So, but this is what he said about her. What she said was it, and that was that. And like some ancient seeress, dispassionate but not cold, she powered it with a conviction so great that it imparted something, a definite impartation. In fact, so great that at times it was almost like a wind, like the psychic breeze, a phenomenon familiar to inquirers. It was something alive, animated, and inspiring. It was due neither to her words nor to her manner. She awakened an awe which was at once personal and impersonal, identified with her, and yet something more. And I have noticed this when you read her writing, you don't necessarily understand everything she's saying, but something happens when you read it. It like touches you in a place that Merle is nodding, because yeah. If you listen, and we're going to listen to a little bit of the Radiant I Am later. If you listen to it, you don't always get all the words, but something happens to you when you hear it. And what I know that it is that she was so at one with that spirit, with the omnipresence. She was so there with it. There was no separation between her and it. So she was considered a mystic, and one of her teaching is considered high mysticism. And Holmes felt that there was a common denominator of mysticism among all people and religions, and that each individual applied that principle to his own life. He identified Hopkins' mysticism expressed in terms applicable to healing. And it's defined as the awareness or a belief in the indwellingness of God, and there's no separation between God, people, and events and things. So, yeah, so she was a mystic. We're all mystics. The question is, are we practicing it or not? Because we all, and Emma would tell us that she would probably not have wanted to have been called a mystic, I'm sure. That we all have the same capability because we all come from the same heritage, which is spirit, divine, God, whatever you want to call it. And I love this because theologians may quarrel, but the mystics of the world speak the same language. So when you're in the presence of people that are mystic, they all say the same thing. They might say it in a different way, but they all say the same thing, which is that the presence is within us, and they identify that presence in each and every person. And that's what does the healing. And that was for Ernest Holmes, like he studied Troward, and Troward was the law to him. And And Emerson, he says, was the love, but Emma brought that mysticism to him that he didn't find in either of those places, I think. That idea that that was the key to healing was the mysticism point. So this is interesting, too. She made her transition in 1925 due to a series of heart failures, which she described in one of her letters as not so much an illness, rather God terminating a career. I guess she had like kind of a sense of humor, right? And yeah, terminated a career. You know, sometimes when you're done, I guess, right? She put in a lot in her life and did a lot and accomplished a lot. She's calling us right now. No. So this is what Raymond Charles Barker, who is another, you'll see his books back there, said about her transition, which I think I would like to read because I thought it was really, really interesting. And she did have a sister. I think she had two sisters. We don't hear much about them, but apparently she was on her sister's farm, the High Watch Farm in Kent. Now, I don't know if this is the same High Watch Farm. Isn't there a farm? I was trying to look it up. That was where Alcoholics Anonymous started or something. Does anybody know that's familiar with that movement? Okay, maybe I'm thinking the wrong thing. Anyway, hers was called the High Watch Farm. Miss Hopkins was at her High Watch Farm in Kent, Connecticut, attended by her sisters. Intuitively knowing that her death was near, she asked her sisters to have Eleanor Mell, was one of her friends, come to see her. Miss Mell drove at once from Boston to Miss Hopkins' home. She was met at the front door by the sister and taken upstairs to the bedroom of Mrs. Hopkins. Mrs. Hopkins greeted her in a normal voice from her bed and told Miss Mell that she was going to make her transition almost immediately. Miss Mell, read to her from metaphysical books, and about an hour later she said to Miss Mell, "Open the Bible and read it to me." Miss Mell opened the Bible to John 17 and read the first verse. These words spake Jesus and lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, "Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee." During the reading, Miss Hopkins passed. I know, it makes me, I don't know why. We just lost a friend yesterday. For some reason, I'm kind of weepy today. But I think about that. And, when you're done sometimes, right? And we don't really understand it. And we don't know really what's going on in another person's mind or why they're done when they're done. But I truly believe that there is that. And sometimes we might not even know it, but on some level we do. But she definitely knew it, and that makes sense because she was so tuned with the spirit and with her life with spirit, in spirit. So, any questions so far that I might be able to answer? Am I going too fast? No? Okay, good. Now, this is the part that might get a little complicated. I tried my best. Like I said, there's so many books. I'm getting hot now. There's so many books that she's got out and books about her. I'm going to tell you that I started reading this book, and what this book is this book in a way that we can kind of understand it.
What's that book called?
It's called Unveiling Your Hidden Power, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Metaphysics for the 21st Century, and it's written by this lady, Ruth L. Miller. And she's basically taken Emma's lessons and kind of made them a little bit more in our language so that we can understand them a little better. And yet she quotes her, but then she'll explain it. Yeah, translate it. It's not the, what are those things, Cliff Notes? It's not that deep. But it is makes it easier. Anyway, so these are the things that she taught. Some of the things. There's a million things she taught. She taught 3 sciences. The material or physical science that declares laws. She believed in law. In fact, she has a book, Spiritual Law in the Natural World. Everything's governed by law. Whether you like the word or not, there are laws, and they're definite. And then when you use them for yourself, they work. When you use them against yourself, they work too, because they always work. So she believed in those laws. And mental science, as all that we are, is made up of our thought. Does that sound familiar? So everything that is mental. We live in a mental universe governed by laws. And then the mystical science was what she emphasized. And the mystical science was the oneness with the power, the oneness with God, the getting in touch with that and sitting with that, and really, really, like in our teaching, if we just did steps 1 and 2 of treatment, which is we recognize that there's only one power and it's God, it's everywhere. And step 2, we are one with that power, we are that power. If we just did those 2 steps, we would be doing what Emma Curtis Hopkins does, step 1 and step 2. So that's the mystical part, and the part that she spent a lot of time with. And that's a part that nobody can really teach you. They can only help you to awaken it within yourself. We're the ones that have to spend the time with it. And that is what she said, where true healing took place. And she drew from the Bible, the non-Christian scriptures, like the Bhagavad Gita and the Zoroaster, Greek, Roman mythology. She took it from everywhere. Again, that's why, what's her name? Mary Baker Eddy was not in sync with her, but she read everything. Everything. She was really, now if you have issues with Jesus, you might have a hard time reading her because she really believed in Jesus. Not Jesus the man, Jesus the Christ mind of Jesus. And she talks about him all the time in her writings, and she claims his name all the time, but not in the way like we're used to in the Christian, dogmatic way. She says the Gospel's teachings of Jesus were superior to the directives and interpretations of Paul's pastoral letters. So she feels like there was like kind of a going away from Jesus' true teachings when Paul came into the scene and started writing those Gospels that he wrote. And that she taught that miracles were emphasized over the anger of the Jehovah of the Old Testament. So that sometimes the religions, and back in her days too, right, got into more of the damnation of God against the people and making them feel bad about themselves rather than emphasizing all the beautiful miracles that happen. And the feminine nature, healing and nurturing and supporting, were given greater importance than the traditional masculine obedience to a higher power. So she was really into the feminine, creative nature of all of us, not just men. All of us have that feminine, creative nature. So she says Jesus the Nazarene was a master teacher showing humanity how to experience unity with the divine. That was Jesus' whole mission. It was kind of meddled with and she thought and taken off course, but that basically was his teaching. And she taught that he had 12-point doctrine, which if understood fully and practiced regularly, would enable the practitioner, which would be the healer, to accomplish many of the same works he and his disciples had demonstrated, as well as whatever other works were specific to the student's situation. So all her work is based in 12. 12 disciples, 12 powers, 12 jewels, 12 everything. That's the magic number to her. And if you look at her books, there's 12 lessons. There's 12 lessons. And the whole point is to be able to master these 12 lessons. She believed we must overcome, this is interesting, 2,000 years of conditioning to weakness by the organized church in order to experience the higher truth of Jesus' teaching. So for 2,000 years, we've been fed something else. And this is not against Christianity. This is against what's been done with Christianity, according to her and according to a lot of other of these people, these New Thought people. So the pure Jesus teaching, as we know what it really, really, truly is, was pure love. It was a teaching of love, unity with the divine, and a teaching of love and law, really, was all of it, but love, fulfilling the law. Okay. She taught that God was goodness, not goodness as opposed to evil in some sort of battle, but rather a goodness that extended to all existence, that reality was actually all goodness, regardless of any appearance to the contrary, that goodness is not in the future, that it's now. So then we give the argument, what about war? What about murder, rape, cruelty, pain, injustice, and a whole litany of human suffering? Doesn't that count? In fact, what makes it difficult for the mind to understand existence as all goodness is that the mind can easily find so many counterexamples. So we go to the counterexamples and we say there's no goodness. All right? Yet the heart can understand it because the heart can understand that existence is love itself. So when she talks about goodness, she is meaning that all there is good. And then there's absence of good. So all these other things you're seeing is the absence of good. They're actually not realities. They're the absence of good. Behind it all, good is still there. People have just forgotten it. And as we teach, it's because we have choice at all times, and people are making choices that are absent of good. They're not believing in good. They're believing in other things, having power over other people, hating themselves mostly, probably, right? She said, God is good is God. There is only God. Therefore, there is only good, and there is no evil. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to hate. There is no power to hurt. There is no matter with its law. There is no matter with its laws. In other words, matter has no power. Matter has no law. We give matter power. So matter, everything we're seeing is matter, right? But it doesn't really exist. It's actually really spirit. We give it power with our thought. We create it, and it becomes form, but it's really not. It's really spirit. It's kind of a really deep concept, but not really if you really think about it and contemplate it. If you think all is spirit, then you know that anything can change in any moment, because spirit just creates from itself according to the impress of our thought, and then it leaves the form it takes and creates again. It's like ice to water and water to ice to vapors. It's the same thing. So, but her whole teaching is God is good, and good is God. And we'll get into that a little bit in a minute. And then she said there were 3 ways that people could heal. Am I overwhelming you yet? No? Okay. She's asked me questions. If you would get the realization of the omnipresence of God, and it was greater and more powerful than anything appearing. So, this is hard for people, for us, because we get trapped in our illnesses, we get trapped in our lack, we get trapped in what we see, and we don't give it a chance. But if we could believe in the omnipresence of God, then God would reveal itself within whatever it is. Does it mean that my friend wouldn't have died yesterday? No. Maybe she was healed, and the omnipresence of God was there, and that was her experience. But sometimes we look at something like that, I'm using it as a real experience, and I don't know her journey, and we say, oh my God, how can we say there's healing or anything when people can just pass like that? But that's just something appearing. According to what Emma would say, she's not really dead, because there's no such thing as death, but there's only life. But we've spent so much time in the world of matter making it real that we don't necessarily, and I'm not speaking like I'm just saying in generalities, we don't necessarily get this, that we can, if we stuck with it, we would instantly heal. And then to get to the cause, get behind what was creating the negative condition. And she did that. I mean, she could see, Jesus did that. He could look at people and see what was causing their issues, right? And it wasn't necessarily that they had a broken leg. There was something behind the broken leg that was causing the broken leg. Like we say that in our teaching, we don't heal diseases. We get to the thought behind it. And when the thought is healed, then everything else falls into place. Anyone can heal who has the desire to help, uplift, and serve mankind. Heal thyself and then teach others to heal, she said. Emma Curtis Hopkins and her followers healed all over, everywhere. She also told us that people who were healed experienced 3 changes. Their health was totally restored, they had new awakened intelligence, and they had a purified motive. Their health was totally restored. They had new awakened intelligence, so they must have thought in a different way from that time forward. Go and sin no more. And they had purified motives, so their lives became to come from a more higher place. If you want me to send you these things, I can, so you don't have to write them all down. Oh, okay. I would be glad to. All right. Any questions? Does it make sense? Yeah?
So maybe that's the 2,000 years that we have to getting older for this, what she had mentioned.
Yeah, like, right? Because we've been programmed for 2,000 years to think something else. We've been programmed for 2,000 years to think we're separate from divinity and that we're bad and we're sinners. And even though we might personally not believe that, there is a race consciousness that does a whole in the whole, and we are, like Ernest Holmes says, that we are part of race. We are born into race consciousness, and that's why in our teaching it's so important for us to know that we can change that within ourselves. We don't have to be subject to it, and that's what we work on. And it's in that movie Heal too. I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Michael Beckwith. He said we basically living our lives through our subconscious is directing our lives. We don't even know it. Our subconscious is creating our lives.
So the 2,000 years of the download.
Yeah, of a download.
We've been downloaded with it, and now
Right.
it's us to get rid of the download.
And we're all waking up. This is what's happening, and this is why all this, it's giving me chills, because I guess that's what he called the psychic breeze. Now I know what the psychic breeze is. I was wondering what it was, and then I realized I get it sometimes. It's why all this stuff is happening right now. It seem like, I think it feels like it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and now look at what's happening. All the kids are rising up because finally they're saying enough is enough is enough. You guys aren't going to do anything? Well, we know better. And this is, but 2,000 years of a download that says something else to us, and we have no power, and give our power over to everybody else, and blah, 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 and it's their fault, and yada, 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 instead of having an awakened intelligence. And then we're really healed. I love it. It just makes me feel like there's, yeah, it is. And in the meantime, yeah, it is exciting, and we can reach out and we can help, and helping one person makes a difference, because one person will go out and help another person, and it's exciting. Okay, so here's her lessons. They're given in different ways. The first 6 lessons in all her lessons are about you, our own well-being. And then, so you apply those lessons to yourself. And then the next 7 through 12 are the same principles, applying them to work with others. And that's our ministry. So when you read them, that's what you get out of them. So I just wrote a little thing from each of the lessons in this book, because I like this book a lot, because I find it, we have a couple copies in the bookstore, I find it easier to understand than most of them. I have, some of them I just get lost in. So the first lesson's about our statement of being, which is the word God. But she doesn't like to use the word God, because she said the word God has done a lot of bad things in the world. People necessarily use the word God a lot, but it doesn't really do anything. It causes more havoc, right? So she likes to use the word good. And she says this thing in there about everybody's always reaching for their good. So their good must be their God. And sometimes they're reaching for it in really weird ways because they don't know any better. But if you really think about it, she says good drives everything. Reaching for good drives an insect to go and get its food. It drives, a plant to push itself out of the ground to reach for the sun. It's like good pushes everything. And so she likes to use the word good. And so she gives you the good I am seeking is my God. My God is my life. My God is my health. My God is my strength. My God is my support. My God is my defense. There's a whole thing in there about that. I think when I read her, I understood better what good meant. What it meant that everything is good. Right. So it's like interchangeable. It makes sense, right? Yeah. And then there's the denials. That's the second lesson. There is no evil, there is no matter, the negation of the unreal. Evil is the absence of good. I said that kind of before. So it's denying those things, saying that they're not really real because they're just the absence of good, because good is all there is. Does that make sense? Yeah. Oh, because science, it's Christian Science. She's calling it science, the denials of science. Like there is no, she's using the word science because that's what she did. It was science, Christian Science. Scientific Christian mental practice. There is no evil, there is no matter, the negation of the unreal. Sometimes you have to use denial in order to get to the core of it. Some people don't believe in denials, but she was a big advocate of denials. Then the other thing is affirmations. These were some of my good is my God, and God I live and move and have my being. I am spirit, mind, wisdom, strength, wholeness. But she says, you better find your own affirmations, the ones that work for you, because you give her, her affirmations aren't necessarily going to make. What's an affirmation? Does anybody want to tell me? It's a statement, yeah. It's a statement of truth. A statement of your truth. Say focused on something that you read with emotion. Right. And it's always in the present tense. Why is it in the present tense? It's what? Right. There is no other. One at a time. What? It's already there, and you're just awakening it. If you put it in the future, it's going to remain in the future. I think we said that somewhere. Was it in our, it was in our class, the abundance class. If you keep saying something's in the future, then it's just going to remain in the future. It's always, it's tomorrow. I feel the sun coming on. I love you tomorrow. Oh my God. Well, it worked for Annie. Right? Okay. And then the foundation of faith. According to thy faith, be it unto thee. Jesus the Christ. We must know what we are to have faith in, good or evil. So where are you placing your faith? We all have faith. We have faith in something. Faith is not something you have to go acquire. You have it. You might have faith in something that's happening in your life, like, oh my God, I'm just going to, get another cold or whatever, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or you have faith that all is well, or you have faith. And it's your faith. According to your faith, be it unto thee. So it's about building, that lesson is about building your foundation of faith in good, not evil. And remember, evil is not bad people going, And then the word of faith, as divine mind which I am, I can preach the gospel, I can heal the sick, I can cast out demons, I can raise the dead, I can work the works of God who works through me to will and do to do that which ought to be done by me according to the doctrine of Jesus Christ. So in other words, you've got to take your faith and then put it out there and use it and preach it and make it happen so that you're not just in your head. And always knowing that it's not you doing it, it's that spirit of power through you doing it. I think we said that in the abundance class too. Don't get puffed up when you have a demonstration, because it's the spirit through you that's doing it. Because if you think you're doing it, you're going to be like working really hard. If you think you're making yourself well, you're going to be spending a lot of time, very frustrated. And what does that mean? To me, it means it's not outside of yourself, it's in yourself. It's moving through you. It's a power that's moving through you and saying yes to you at all times. It's the nature of your being to demonstrate. And then the secret of the Lord is let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. So what's the Christ mind? If I say the Christ mind, what does that mean to you? The what? Enlightenment. The teaching, the message, ultra spiritual, love. The Christ mind is the mind that's totally like at one with God, like totally knows that I and the Father are one, or whatever you want to call that being of energy source. People don't like the word Father because it's masculine, but yes, sir. But I want you to have the microphone so that the thing can hear you.
It's just the Lord part that's always been, kind of turns me off a little bit. But it's really law. It's the secret of the law. But a lot of times we see Lord, and all I can see is the man with the long hair and them sitting up to our Lord. But it is law, right?
Right. Well, that's an Ernest Holmes interpretation of the word Lord. I don't know if she meant that or not. She might have meant the Lord. But when we use the word Lord, if we take it and we exchange it with law, and we go and we use it, like if we see a Bible quote and we use law instead, just to try it sometimes, it makes a lot of sense. Yes, somebody was going to say.
The word Lord, I always think of the Lord of my being.
The Lord of my being, right. The God within.
actually pronounced laud.
Okay. You know, we can make it mean whatever we can make it mean whatever we want it to mean, right? Or pronounce it any way we want to pronounce it. Yeah. Anyway, get that Christ mind. You don't get it, you just awaken it, really. Okay. Then the spring of life is that nothing exists outside of yourself. I put, if you spot it, you got it. So, I mean, I noticed that when I was in the airport. I was sitting there and I used to get overwhelmed when I saw a lot of people. But when I put myself, like, in the middle of something that was all my mind, all happening within my mind, and all these, you know, I could feel the oneness. And I knew that all my mind was all that, was projecting all that. That's what she's saying. We're going to go into that a little bit when we do the her self-healing thing. We're projecting it. That nothing exists outside of ourselves. And we talk about that in the science of mind. There's only one mind. And the only reason we can talk to each other is because we're all living in that one mind, or we wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't have any communication with each other. We wouldn't even know what we were talking about. It's interesting, right? Well, they're still there, though, and they're reflecting something back to us. And then we talked about this before, rending the veil. Matter is the only deceiver. All is spirit, which I said to you before. That we get deceived by matter because we think it's real or we think it's unchangeable. Because we look at our checkbook and we go, how am I ever going to get that? You know, how am I going to get? And when we realize that behind it all is consciousness and it can change in an instant. Somebody said that they stopped looking at their checkbook and then their whole financial situation went up. They stopped looking at the figures over and over again. Yes, what?
What is meant by rending the veil with that?
Rending the veil would be like, there's a veil between what we know and what we think we don't know. All right? Like they talk about, like the veil is very thin now, that we're knowing, we're seeing really the truth of life and the truth of God and the truth of all that. So it's about tearing the veil down. That veil that separates us from knowing everything. Yeah, and matter and spirit are one thing. When we realize that all is spirit, everything's going to change.
Isn't physics proving that?
Yes.
I mean, you could say energy instead of spirit.
Right.
If you look at it that
Right.
way, then indeed.
Right. These people were way above their times. This was starting to happen, around that time in 1925, that all atomic physics and all that stuff was starting to, right? But these guys were even way ahead. And the ones before them that were saying this stuff, they were saying it in a different way, but they were saying the same thing. Righteous judgment. If it is hard for you to cure your case, you have made the mistake somewhere of believing in hardships for somebody or yourself. A mistaken idea about God in your own life will break out somewhere. So in other words, we judge everything. So we can't say we're healers or we can heal ourselves or anybody else or anything if we have judgments that this is bad and that's bad and that person did that to me. I mean, it has to be, it's either all or nothing. It's going to break out somewhere if you have disturbed thoughts or judgments about things or life or others.
So if you believe in the hardship of yourself and others, it's not believing in the good.
Right. If you believe that there is hardship, like they talk about one of the great philosophers, I can't remember who it was, but that was preaching all this stuff, but he still believed that holy men and stuff had lots of hardships. So therefore, he was demonstrating hardships, even though he was. I think it might have been Ralph Waldo Emerson. Even though he was saying all this stuff, he still believed that somewhere within him that there was hardship and he had to suffer because of what he was doing. So yeah, if you believe it, it's a mistaken identity about the God, about the good idea, and it's going to break out somewhere. So what's righteous judgment? It's not like what we think it is. Like when we hear that word, we get like our skin starts to crawl. Oh, righteous judgment. But that's not what they're talking about. What? Judgment of the good.
The judgment of the good inside of you.
Not having judgment. Like just righteous judgment is just that it's good. That it's love, acceptance, allowing. I don't even like the word allowing. I like the word allowing.
Maybe it's like discernment instead of judgment.
What's discernment?
What?
No, I know. It's true. We're just having discernment about. We have a whole, like when I took mental muscle, which is my mentor teaches, and he's actually getting ready to teach it again. It's 8 weeks of mental boot camp. Who took that with me? Anybody? Oh, Trish took it. But we talk about it's a whole week dedicated to judgment. And everybody tries to get around it by saying they're just discerning or whatever. But the way you look at it, and it's, we all do it. I mean, it's 2,000 years now we know of downloading, right? So she's just saying, if you can get out of judgment, you're going to be a better healer. If you can just have righteous judgment, which is that all is love, all is God, all is good. And if somebody is doing something, that doesn't excuse somebody from doing something that's wrong or that hurts another person. Doesn't excuse it. I think that's what we get mixed up with. We think that we're excusing their behavior and saying it's okay that they did that. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying it's not our job to judge people or judge their actions. Fearlessness. If a patient comes before us the fourth time for healing, it shows that when we saw him, we had been somewhat disturbed on the question of which is more powerful in the world, good or evil. So, in other words, if somebody's not healing, it's obviously the healer's fault. No. Well, but it's also the person is not accepting it too. All right? So, if it comes to you for the fourth time, is it the fourth time for healing? It shows that when we saw him, we had been somewhat disturbed on the question of which is more powerful in the world, good or evil. So in other words, we still had a disturbance within ourselves, or we would have seen that that person was perfect and whole and complete, and we would have truly seen it and known it and believed it. So she says, touch not earth, keep your eye on the mark of the high calling. I do not believe in mixtures. You can't keep your mind stayed on two things at the same time. Yeah.
That goes back to lesson number 9, which is you in some way have some type of judgment or believe in some type of hardship or that which is not the good or good. So therefore, you won't be able to heal others because you still have healing within yourself.
Yes. And as practitioners, that's where we work. We only work in our own mind. So we're only changing our own mind about you, but it's our own mind. And if we have any kind of judgment at all, we can't do it. We can't do it. And if we can't, we have to be fearless. We can't believe in evil. We have to believe in good. We have to know it. We have to live it. We have to breathe it. We have to reach it within ourselves and practice it. And wow, it is a discipline, right? It's practice. 11, the way of wisdom, holding our highest thoughts even when our clients give the appearance of holding on. Persistence in standing in truth, or we will go back to the old, that should have been old way of thinking, the old way of thinking. Yeah, in other words, we have to continue to practice it, or we will go back to our old way of thinking. If we don't continue to do our treatment work, our meditation, you know it, guys, if we go out into the world and we haven't spent that time with ourselves, we will easily go back to 2,000 years of downloading. But eventually, it does get easier and easier. I know for myself, I don't think of things in the same way. I still have a ways to go, but a long ways to go. But I don't look at things the same way. I just don't. And I think I know it's because I spend the time. And then, of course, the crown of glory is love. That's the whole thing. That's it. It's love. And what is love? I mean, how do you define love?
I might misquote this. John 13, verse 8 says, God is love.
Emerson used to say, God is a synonym for love, or love is a synonym for God. Yeah. So those are just a little touch on her 12 lessons. So, do we need to take a quick break? Or is everybody, just go to the bathroom real quick. Let's take 5 minutes, because I want to get through this one thing. Yeah. If you have to go to the bathroom, take the key. one night. But it seems like it'll inspire people to just look into it a little deeper.
So you said you can have this.
You can have
But
it.
it's so simple, right?
And you said it's also gonna be on YouTube?
It's possible.
Put something in my arm. How you doing? You getting ready to do some acting with us? Yes, very much. Well, we've actually rearranged some things. Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna, on Saturday, I don't remember the date, but it's Saturday before the Friday.
It's the 24th.
Saturday,
24th night.
so we can all kind of. So that, she's talking about, you know, so that way they can.
It's not karaoke. In the no won't.
But there will be times when we'll have to make.
It'll be both.
Yeah, I don't, when I was your age, I didn't, I loved the acting.
It's more like
Did not like it, even though I did
CSL.
it made me think all this. I didn't like to be very good at, I didn't think I was very good at it. But I just liked it. But sometimes with the math, stuff like that, so cool.
She spends so much when CSL kind of
It'll be good.
solid.
You got two people helping you, did not for one, who have a lot of background.
Well, it is a life teaching. Right, it is. I just want her to make it really simple. Try to say we are making because in reality, this is
How are you?
It's read it, and they have to say it in a lot more words.
Right.
right.
So help you get it a different way. Really, God is good.
How you feeling?
And that's it. And all there is.
And there's also a lot of us getting power over people. Or makes them feel like they need guys, then have more power. I don't really understand power really, but
I heard that Sunday. Yeah. I think what it is that we're
So
connected collective consciousness.
all the
So
same.
yeah, it could be. But and I think that Sunday was very healing for many people because I think we gave ourselves purpose.
down. I mean, she would have said, don't condemn another
Feel it all.
religion.
And I was saying to that.
You know what I mean?
I mean, when I was talking to my
Somebody
students
went
about
over
it,
to me.
so it's about that place of enlightenment, always comes from selflessness for the good of others, the good of
So when I
self.
see
And
people
then when you go down, selfishness.
I don't know if it's just me, but I see it so powerful.
Think about yourself
Something's
as
coming
the
up.
detriment of others.
So, yeah, it was a great Sunday. I felt something. Rita was we all just, everybody just kind of went to the vortex of something, right? And we were all like out there laughing and
Yeah, sometimes we
crying.
get like, oh, we're
And I think
selfish.
it's all of it.
I just did Renee Brown workshop, and she, one of the things that she said is that,
No, if we don't love ourselves.
Can't transmit something you don't have.
Yeah, you can't love somebody else.
I said, I just did a workshop, it was very interesting. So funny, I couldn't find it.
I'm like, get up.
The biggest person I could find was Renee Brown.
But I'm not sleeping.
Maybe you need to be. There's not a lot of men.
Yeah, I just touched on it. I mean, there's so much. I should get this book in the bookstore. Or you can order it on Amazon. This is good. 'Cause this is harder to understand, and this has all the same stuff.
It's like Old Testament, or not Old Testament, the old King James version and the American, like revised version.
All right, let's start coming back. I have that much more.
I was just saying, I wish that when we were taught this, that we were taught Emma this way, very, because we were kind of like skimmed over Emma.
In reality, she's a whole course. I mean, she could be like years. I mean, they have courses in Ralph Waldo Emerson that go on forever and ever and ever. You can't get it. Like, think about all the things she wrote. This is not even doesn't even touch the iceberg of what she wrote. What? Yes.
How long did this? What was the average time for her students to come into her class and then graduate? Like, how long would that take?
Well, obviously that first one wasn't very long. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't. That's a good question. I don't know.
Because with Ernest Holmes, like, I wonder how long he was with her until
He only took 12 lessons from her, one a week.
just 1 week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that's not bad.
I think it was in New York because he went to her room, like her hotel room. I think she had somebody else there with her though. Well, think about it. They'll start rumors, right? Think about it though. That was the time period when she was traveling all over the place and staying in different places and teaching in different places and stuff. Or she actually, yeah. Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to say how interesting that the practitioner work that we do, that not to become,
I want to make sure you're heard, Patrick.
not to become a minister, but the practitioner work, the first year is all about you. And she just said the first 6 was about you. And our second year is all about taking you, because you need to clear yourself first before you start going out and working with people, or clear yourself, or remember how to clear yourself. So how funny that Ernest Holmes divided it into 2 as well.
That's true. That was very astute, Patrick. Very good. No, it's true, because our first year in practitioner studies is how life got to be the way it is, and it's all about you, right? And the second is the second year, and everybody loves the first year because you get to be all about yourself and delve into all your issues and heal them and all that stuff. I know some people don't want to do it. We've had people quit. Okay, so according to Emma, these are some of the things, how to heal. Sit down at a certain time every day and write down on a paper what your idea of good is. Write the highest ideas of good you have. Such a practice will pin you down to truth, and it is in truth that there is power. Yeah, so it's kind of almost like visualizing, right? Sit down and what is your idea of what the good is that you're trying to manifest? What is your idea of good? Take two of the 12 doctrines and repeat them each day. Spend an hour in the morning reasoning out the lessons that address your own nature, 1 through 6, and an hour in the afternoon on lessons addressing the people around you and your environment, your ministry, chapters 7 through 12. That's a lot of time, and I have to say that I don't do that much. But then I breathe this stuff, but I don't do that. I don't sit down with her lessons. I mean, I'm going to tell them myself, but I would love to do that. Maybe I should. Maybe I'd get... By going over and over the lessons, we come nearer the healing feeling. It's all about the feeling, right? It's like, it's not about getting it intellectually. People will say that. They go, oh, I get it on an intellectual level, but I can't feel it. I don't really get it. Because if you get it on with your mind, which is the first step, is getting it with your mind, trying to find an understanding. But eventually you have to come to embodiment, which is what we call like the click. the thing that where you feel like, oh my God, it's settling in my bones. I've got it. I feel it. I know it. And I know we've all had that for certain things in our life. So, yeah. Those are just a couple of her little tips. And then I put some books. But there's so many books. I mean, I couldn't even name them all. There's a lot. And you can find them on the internet. Yeah. Okay. This is what I want to do next. And then we're going to... The world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist affirming the world is. What does that mean to you? You are what you believe. Whatever you focus on grows, right? Whatever you affirm continues. We are responsible for our world. The world, there is nothing outside of ourself, and it's going to continue to exhibit what we affirm it to be. We're all nodding. Do we believe it? All right. Okay, so this is, what happened to it? Oh, there it is. Okay, the thing with this is I couldn't get the sound to come through the TV, but I want you guys, first of all, I want to pass this out. This is the Radiant I Am. I don't know how many of you have done it. Just pass them back so we'll get more. Now, you're going to get like really, have to really, I printed on both sides. Let me have one too so I get one. Oops, I got two. Here. If you want more than one copy, I made a lot of copies. Okay. I wanted to play it. It's an actress reading her, but I wanted to, this thing, I've done it, and I'm going to tell you that it works. But the reason it works is because it takes more than one time. So I did it once for 30 days, like just listen to it. And I'm just starting to actually understand. I was just starting by listening to it over and over, understand what she was talking about. But I just want you to hear a little bit of it, because looking at it, let's see if we can get it to come up. And I'll try to get it as loud as I can, Rob, but I'll put my microphone. Where's the microphone on this computer? I don't know. Let's see if we can get it up first. Hold on. It might have a commercial first, so please forgive me because it's on YouTube. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, it started in the middle. I don't want that. Okay, come on. Why did it do that? Okay. Tell me if you can hear it. We're only going to listen to a little bit of it.
I am a self-healing Emma Curtis Hopkins. The listening disciple becomes a preaching apostle.
Really listen.
Standing at the center of being and looking outward over the world, instruction is received from every quarter. But who has told himself that all the objects he beholds and all their movements also are but projections of his own judgment? He seems always to be a learner and a seeker, till at the center of his consciousness, the fact is suddenly proclaimed that he himself produced to the world as it
Wait, I'm going to
appears.
stop for a second. Hold on.
Then he no longer...
What did you just say? I know, but I don't know where the speaker is on.
We can actually hear it.
You can hear it?
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to go back one because we got distracted, and I want you all to like look at your paper. Don't look at her
I would
mouth.
close your eyes because she gets creepy.
Yeah. I don't... All right. Please just try. We're just going to do the very first part.
the radiant I am, a self-healing Emma Curtis Hopkins. The listening disciple becomes a preaching apostle. Standing at the center of being and looking outward over the world, instruction is received from every quarter. But who has told himself that all the objects he beholds and all their movements also are but projections of his own judgment? He seems always to be a learner and a seeker, till at the center of his consciousness, the fact is suddenly proclaimed that he himself produced to the world as it appears. Then he no longer listens to informations from without. He authorizes from himself what he would see and hear and touch, even what he would know. I have been a listening disciple. I have let people and objects and activities come toward me and impinge upon me till I have been overpiled and mountain covered with thoughts. But now I know that I am at my own center authority over and through my universe, and I shall ordain my 12 disciples, or my 12 powers, to spread my original nature abroad, till from me to the utmost stretches all is my divine ego. It is the teaching that all is spirit, and matter is not obedient shadow picturing thereof, which is the final subtle message toward me that makes me see that I am what I am and alter not. Spirit is the gentle mother doctrine among the doctrines of the world, gentle but inexorable. She brings to exposure the man-child, my I am, who shall rule all nations with a rod of iron. The iron that is strongest is magnetic. It rules in the earth by holding all the particles together. It rules in the sun. It rules in all the spheres. They roll because of the magnet. So all my being has moved because of my I am. So all my universe shall wheel to my ordination. This is my ministry. I am glad to give myself to myself, and to give all my world to myself, and let myself do in judgment 12 works upon the earth. This is my ministry. I have heard all I shall ever hear. I know all I shall ever know. I now make myself known.
Okay, I'm not going to listen to the whole thing, but okay, you can see that. What did you get out of just that little bit?
She definitely wanted to be voice.
Yeah, but that was an actress, though. But yeah, no, that wasn't her.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow, she was a good actress. No, it wasn't her. Yeah, no. So, but as far as what she said, what did you get out of that? Just a little bit.
Magnet thing was really cool. The rod of iron, the magnet, I'd never heard anything like that before. It's so into physics.
Right? Well, aren't we a magnet? Everything's drawn toward us.
Magnetic fields now and things like that.
And, yes, Sue?
I love the part where she said, I know all I need to know, I've heard all I need to hear. It's kind of like, I'm up to here with this, this old way of thinking, and now I'm going to rely on myself and what I know already. I love that.
I know, right? And that's the way she taught. She just brought that. Can you hear me still since I changed mics? She just brought that out in her students, that they already knew it all. They just needed to know that they knew it all, basically.
Yeah, I'm learning things tonight that I can use in my teaching in my kindergarten class. Like,
I
the
know,
kids
right?
already know what they know.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just there to remind them. It's really awesome.
And I love the part where it says, where is it? Where then he no longer listens to information from without. He authorizes himself what he would see and hear, and even what he should know. That she actually, I have let people and objects and activities come toward me and impinge upon me till I have been overpiled and mountain covered with thoughts. But now I know that I am at my own center. And I get to call the shots. I get to be the one that says how the world is going to look. And then she goes into, when you go back further into this, she goes into each of these 12 things, from health to strength, to protection, to, judgment, to all these different things. You'll see there's 12 of them. They're not numbered, but if you figure it out, you'll see there were 12. But there's a part where it says, let's see. Oh, like the one on health. I am the power of health to the universe. Because I am holy at my center, I make whole whatever I decree. I am authority. There shall be happy, joyous, free, fearless health through this universe from this day. All that have name and shape shall this day lift up their heads with new refreshment. The elixirs of fadeless healing shall steal through them. There shall be no disease or sickness from the day of the Lord onward. The inhabitant shall not say, I am sick anymore. I don't know, it just goes on and on. It's like really powerful. Anyway, so she's like decreeing this. Now, I'm sure that this didn't happen overnight for her. She worked on it. And that's why I'm saying when you listen to it, if you give yourself the chance, it makes a great meditation. It's 27 minutes long. And you just sit there. We used to listen to it going to sleep at
I
night.
was just thinking that we used to do it going to sleep. I go,
just
what
turn it
other
on.
couples do that? Good night, honey. Can you turn on Emma?
I go, I need Emma tonight. I need Emma. Just turn her off. And I'd go to sleep listening to that, and on my little phone. And then, what's all this? Okay, whatever this is, let's get out of here. Now I got to figure out where I am with this. Hold on. I am right. Okay. So I'm almost done. But anyway, it's a really great thing. I wanted you to have the writing. Oh, this is what happened. Yeah. And you can find it on YouTube. Hold on, I got to do this way because it doesn't work the other way. Why is it not going back? Okay. Slide from current slide. Yeah. What did I just do? Oh, screwed up. Hold on. From current slide. Okay. Okay. And this is it. If I were to be asked directly as to the quickest way for a scientist to get his healing power going, I would probably say, praise everything and everyone in your mind. And as far as your mental convictions will demonstrate, promptly speak these praises aloud. Praise everything. Try it one day and see if you can do it. Oh, it's profound. Yeah. And just contemplate that idea of praising everything and not dwelling on everything that's wrong. It's going to make a difference in our lives, guys. It really is. Oh, is that it? I think that was the last thing I had. Yeah, we leave it there. So, yeah, any more finishing questions before we close out? I trust that at least gave you a taste of her, and that maybe you'll feel like you want to, look her up. There's plenty of stuff on the internet that's free. You can go to the newthoughtlibrary.org. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's got everybody on there. Anybody that's from any philosophy, they call it the newthoughtlibrary.org. And there's a lot of books that are on there that are free because they're in public domain. And a lot of our stuff is on there. And all people's stuff. Anybody you can imagine. Okay. I also had Born of God, a Self-Healing by Emma Curtis Hopkins. If you want it, you can have it. I just printed it out.
Rita, what did she do when she went off on her journeys?
Yeah. What do you mean, what did she do when she went?
What did she do when she went off on her journeys to San Francisco and other places after she dissolved everything? What was her life like?
Well, she was like a gypsy. She taught, she healed, and she gave lessons, private lessons. I mean, probably by then she was probably pretty well known in her circles of people, and people came. Obviously, Ernest Holmes found her, and I think different people that she just taught and spoke, and yeah, that's all she really did. She didn't have a physical school, like a physical formal school anymore, but she just was like a gypsy, I guess. Went from place to place, and people found her. Knowing her, she probably spent a lot of time meditating and doing her own inner work. Probably doing her own And she wrote. I mean, look at all the books. I mean, she wrote a lot of books. So she probably was spending time writing too. And I don't know a lot about how she got her books published or anything, or whether they were published after. We could find that out. Like who these books were published by. I have no clue. Originally published in 1894. Yeah, so that was a long time ago, right? That was when she was originally published. I don't see the year on this one. Anyway, but she's got so many books. You could look her up. I mean, there's so much about her online. You will never not be able to find something. People have written theses on her. I found one girl that she had her whole thesis on there. Yeah. So anything else? Any burning questions?
I think you should mention your book just because it was our thesis, by the way.
My little book was my thesis, and this is my proof copy. I wrote this because I wanted to bring all these people together, like Emma, and try to figure out how Ernest Holmes came up with his idea of spiritual mind treatment. So I go through all these different people: Emma, Mary Baker Eddy, Jesus, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Anton Mesmer, all these people that were, and it's short, and it's really good because it kind of gives you an introduction into the New Thought movement and Ernest Holmes and spiritual mind treatment. So that was, and I did it for my ministerial thesis, and then I turned it into that.
Hold it up so Rob can zero in.
So and I like it because it's easy and it's quick, and you could give it to somebody, and if they said, "Oh, well, what's it all about?" You could give it, and then they would see that it ties into all these people that they probably heard of. You know what I mean? Like Ralph Waldo Emerson and all these people. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. And let's thank Emma for her beautiful, amazing life and all the good she did in the world. I mean, right? Let's see, where is she? I want to go back to the beginning picture so we can pray out. There she is. You are the patron saint by nature of literature, art, and education. All that you favor prospers if you have learned to spend all vacant moments silently whispering, "I am good." So let's just take that in for a moment. And settling right here and right now, knowing there only is right here and right now. It's one moment that can never be duplicated. This present moment of unlimited possibilities, unlimited potential, this moment where God is, life is, love is. Love is here, and it is flowing through and as each one of us. We are that presence of love, that presence of good, that presence of God, that presence of the divine. And I know that and claim that I am so grateful that I have had this evening to spend with these amazing light beings in this room, and that we have had this opportunity to delve a little bit into this great, beautiful mind of Emma Curtis Hopkins. And I know that something good comes from this for each of us, some deeper understanding of who we truly are, some deeper understanding that we can share with each other and with the world, and most especially with ourselves, that we can grow and expand in that knowing that we are that goodness, that life, that love. I know that this unfolds perfectly as we move from here into our life, and we get to use it in the best way. And we bless our life and the lives of all those around us. And just by being ourselves, we lift the consciousness of this planet in the most amazing way and help in this time of just seeing and knowing the real truth, what's really happening behind it all, which is that divine presence is making itself known in grander and more perfect and amazing ways right here and right now. That's what I know. So I give thanks again for this night, for this time, for each and every person here. And I give great thanks again for Emma and for all that she has done, and all the great minds like hers and our very minds that are just as great and just as wonderful. So I just say mahalo, mahalo, and I take this word and I release it. I let it go into law as we affirm together. And so it is. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Get a good night's sleep.